Recent developments in the Gaza-Israel conflict. Recent developments in the Gaza-Israel conflict, February 9 to 13, 2025. According to the ceasefire agreement, Hamas must release 3 additional hostages by February 15, 2025. The pertinent question is whether U.S. President Donald Trump will be satisfied. He, after all, threatened to let all hell break loose if all the other hostages were not released by midday. These gradual releases are not to his liking, wants all of them. Furthermore, President Trump referred to 12 p.m. in either Israel time or Eastern time in the United States, but the public is not sure which time zone. Also, no one knows if he means an immediate response or a be on lookout BOLO response. Will he use or give to Israel to use the 500-pound and 2,000-pound bombs Biden withheld? Will our military get directly involved as a police action and thereby avoid the need for congressional approval? If we do not declare war, the President of the U.S. does not need the United States Congress to approve the action. The survival of the ceasefire is now even more uncertain due to Trump's plan to relocate approximately 2 million Palestinians from Gaza to other nations. Israel has endorsed the proposal, but Palestinians and Arab nations who have to accept any refugees have strongly opposed it. According to human rights organizations, it might be a war crime under international law. Far-right supporters of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are already demanding that the war be resumed after first phase to implement Trump's plan and destroy Hamas, which still controls the region after surviving one of the bloodiest and most devastating military campaigns in recent history. A fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas remains in effect as of February 13, 2025. Hamas has announced its intention to release 3 Israeli hosts on Saturday, February 15th, and has reiterated its commitment to the truce. This decision negotiations mediated Egypt and Qatar to disputes the ceasefire. Israel had previously warned of resuming military action if the agreed-upon release of the captives was not fulfilled. Military operations. The IDF, or Israel Defense Forces, the IDF has fully withdrawn from the Netzarim corridor in accordance with the ceasefire conditions, allowing Palestinians to return to Gaza. Despite the ceasefire in Gaza, Israeli military activities in the West Bank have continued. Notably, Israeli forces killed 2 women in the Tulkarm Governorate's Nur Shams refugee camp on February 9. Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to the planned release of Israeli hostages and the ceasefire. To maintain the truce and resolve any disputes that may arise, the group has been negotiating with mediators. Additionally, Hamas has been collaborating with Egyptian authorities to facilitate the entry of medical supplies and makeshift shelters into Gaza. International reactions and peace proposals. President Donald Trump proposed relocating Palestinians to nearby nations like Egypt and Jordan to develop Gaza as a high-end travel destination. He believed they would have better living conditions, but the plan faced strong opposition. Jordan's King Abdullah, along with Egyptian and Jordanian authorities, opposed the idea, stressing the need to rebuild Gaza without displacing residents and advocating for a 2-state solution. I say if they stay, use them as labor force at no cost, to clean up their own country and rebuild. Their pay for their work will be having their homes back. No financial gain, as they are only working to restore their homes and businesses. Netanyahu says that Gaza has not been a part of Israel since 2005 when Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon disengagement in the summer of 2005. To this day, the international community views Gaza as occupied territory, as Israel still uses its authority to prevent a two-state solution. Under Israeli occupation, Gaza cannot declare themselves as an independent sovereign nation. However, even to this date, Netanyahu claims Israel has no control or ownership of the Gaza Strip. Possible Palestinian relocation. Approximately 1.8 million Palestinians are to be relocated from Gaza, nearby nations under the proposed relocation plan. Although the precise legal procedures for such ownership have not been specified, the President has stated that the United States would supervise the process. It remains uncertain how the promised beautiful living standards for the displaced Palestinians will be funded. The White House has declared that the cost of rebuilding Gaza will fall on Americans, but it did not provide any other. Conflict between Israel and Gaza remains complex and dynamic. Proposed options for Gaza's future, particularly those involving the displacement of its population, have generated considerable discussion and concern among stakeholders, even as efforts to uphold the ceasefire and facilitate hostage releases continue. The role of the ceasefire in the West Bank and future developments, while Hamas's primary base is in the Gaza, it also has factions in the West Bank. Following the current ceasefire in Gaza, Hamas has called for further clashes with Israel in the West Bank. A spokesman for Hamas military wing urged for an escalation in West Bank and emphasized the importance of among Palestinians in a pre-recorded message. Likelihood of Israel forcibly removing Palestinians from the West Bank. It is highly unlikely Israel will forcibly expel Palestinians from the bank, as this would violate international law. International law recognizes the West as territory, and the eviction or forced relocation of it would violate the Fourth Geneva Convention if its inhabitants were. Although some political personalities and settler organizations in Israel have called for increased settlement activity, even the annexation of the West Bank, these actions have drawn strong international. 4. Israeli settlers have intensified their efforts to expand existing settlements and establish new posts, resulting in the displacement of Palestinian communities, particularly Bedouins. Israel's resettlement plans on the West Bank. For many years, Israel has been expanding its settlements on the West Bank. Recently, proposals to significantly increase the settler population have emerged. Plans to raise the number of West Bank settlers to 1 million, for instance, have been proposed. This includes resettling regions that were evacuated as part of the 2005 disengagement plan. These measures are part of a larger strategy by some Israeli groups to establish authority over the West Bank. Such initiatives, however, are controversial and face strong internal and international opposition. In conclusion, despite Hamas's efforts to influence events in the West Bank, Israel is unlikely to forcibly expel Palestinians from the region due to moral and legal limitations. However, settlement growth remains a major concern. As of February 13, 2025, the International Criminal Court, ICC, has not found Israeli Minister Benjamin Netanyahu guilty of violating international law. However, on November 21, 2024, the ICC issued arrest warrants for Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and Netanyahu. The charges include crimes against humanity, such as murder, persecution, and other inhuman acts, as well as war crimes, notably the use of famine as a method of allegedly committed the fighting in Gaza October 8, 2023 to May 20, 2024. It is important to note that an arrest does not lead to a conviction. Despite the ICC issuing these warrants, Netanyahu has been detained or put on trial and is therefore still innocent. The issuance of the warrant is a landmark event, as it is the first time they have accused a democratic leader supported by the West of war crimes. Israel has been accused of violating international law by various international authorities and human rights organizations for acts committed during the recent conflict in Gaza. For example, according to the Committee to Journalists, Israel was responsible for approximately 70% of these deaths, primarily during the Israel-Gaza conflict. The organization accused Israel of obstructing investigations and neglecting accountability. Netanyahu has not been found of genocide against the Palestinian people. Genocide is included in the accusations, which pertain to crimes and crimes against humanity. Legal proceedings are ongoing, and Netanyahu is presumed innocent of the charges until a trial is conducted and a verdict is rendered. Israel's military would have more flexibility to strike if there were significantly fewer hostages in Gaza. Additionally, the United States, its primary military sponsor, would impose significantly fewer restrictions on it. While providing crucial military and diplomatic support, the Biden administration has at times urged Israel to allow additional aid and even halted certain arms shipments. Furthermore, it has stated that the Palestinian people of Gaza should not be permanently displaced. Record number of journalists killed in 2024, Israel mostly responsible, CPJ says. The ICC's issuance of arrest warrants for war crimes and crimes against humanity that international courts Netanyahu's actions in Gaza to be, even if he has not been found guilty. The question of whether he will adhere to international law in his future decisions, including any possible in the West Bank, is thus raised. Given prior leadership, the Israeli settlements in the West Bank, despite international resistance, the continued military occupation, and the significant presence of troops in Gaza, it is possible that Netanyahu will pursue measures that further displace Palestinians. However, forcibly removing all Palestinians from the West Bank would garner severe international condemnation, sanctions, and heightened regional unrest. A mass expulsion of Palestinians from the West Bank would be unprecedented, even though Netanyahu has a history of flouting international law when conflicts with Israeli strategic objectives. Such a move would likely face significant Palestinian opposition, international legal challenges, and diplomatic repercussions, including from key allies like the United States. The likelihood of this scenario depends on numerous factors, including Israeli domestic politics, international pressure, and the level of opposition from and international entities. The likelihood of this scenario depends on numerous factors, including Israeli domestic politics, international pressure, and the level of opposition from international entities. President Donald Trump suggested relocating Gaza's residents to neighboring nations like Jordan and Egypt during a recent White House meeting, with intentions to reconstruct Gaza for commercial use. Concerned about the possible destabilizing repercussions of such a Palestinian migration into Jordan, King Abdullah of Jordan vehemently opposed this proposal. King Abdullah refused to support the idea, even after President Trump threatened to stop providing aid to non-compliant nations. He said that Arab countries would make a counter-proposal, emphasizing the importance of rebuilding Gaza without displacing its citizens. During a recent White House meeting, Donald Trump relocating Gaza's residents neighboring countries such as Jordan and Egypt, with the aim of reconstructing Gaza for commercial purposes. King Abdullah of Jordan strongly opposed this proposal due to concerns about the potential destabilizing effects of a migration into Jordan. Despite President's threat to withhold assistance from non-complying nations, King Abdullah still does not support the idea. He emphasized Arab countries would present a counter-proposal, highlighting the importance of rebuilding Gaza without displacing its citizens. Palestinians were already displaced with the creation of Israel. Jordan and Egypt united the conference to oppose President Trump's Gaza plan. Both nations emphasized their commitment to rebuilding Gaza and aiding without displacing residents. Jordan, which has a sizable Palestinian refugee population, agreed to take in 2,000 ill children from Gaza as a humanitarian gesture, but did not openly support President Trump's plan. Consequently, President Trump withdrew the threat to cut off U.S. aid to Jordan. In conclusion, King Abdullah expressed concerns about regional stability and the potential harm to Jordan by opposing President Trump's plan to evacuate the people of Gaza. Talks highlighted different viewpoints on how to address Gaza's problems, with Jordan alternatives that do not require displacing citizens.